into our off-site studio this evening, and then you welcoming us into your homes. I really want to say that we appreciate the efforts that you make to log on every week. This evening, let me apologize for our late start or delayed start. Some minor changes. As you would observe, we are not in studio this evening. However, we are bringing the same type of energy, the same type of information, the same type of conversations to you in your homes, on your devices, wherever you may find yourself. And so we want you to be able to just sit back, relax, call a friend, let them know that the show is actually on, that we have begun, and that you want us to really sit and explain and discuss and share some information with you. It is in the air and we are going to get right into it, but not before I say to you that if you are viewing this program, you can look at us on the Tobago Updates website, the Tobago Updates Facebook page, or you can simply log on to the YouTube channel, Tobago Updates YouTube channel. If you are an Amplifier subscriber, channel 102, yes, that's channel 102. If you are a Flow subscriber, however, you can find us or view us on channels 121, channel 121, or channel 130. Yes, if you have information that you want to send to us, a WhatsApp, you want to send us a message, you want to send a picture, so forth. Yes, I can also give you a cell phone number. However, before I even go there, there's some big news coming up soon. I want you all to stay tuned to Tobago Updates, and you're going to be hearing a lot as the next coming days unfold. The number to send that information to is 284-6597. That's 284-6597. Joining me this evening, looking very, very fresh and radiant, is the Minority Councillor, Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit. Welcome to the Minority Report again and again and again.
Yes, good evening, Marlon. Good evening, Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago. Wherever you are locked on to the Minority Report, welcome and good evening. And we also have a special shout out to the Minority Leader.
Yes.
He's having his watch party as we speak. So we do miss him in studio today, but we know, all matters considered, duty calls. So he is elsewhere off-site. So good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. It's always good to be on the Minority Report, sharing the facts, delivering the information, bringing the insights, and speaking to the people.
Very, very fitting welcome. And yes, indeed, Minority Leader is about the people's business. As we know, we kind of always split here and have a lot going on at the same time. Yes. And so sometimes it takes one or more of us away from the studio. But we're here this evening. Minority Councillor, a big, big topic right now.
Indeed.
Budget day has come and gone.
Yes.
We would have seen a great amount of uncertainty operating in the public domain, where we saw in one instance the date was announced and then we saw the minister himself coming to refute that announcement and saying that he made no such announcement, nor did he give any information. And then a few moments later, the very set date. So it was a bit of a back and forth, a bit of uncertainty and quite a debacle in the public domain. However, the budget was read yesterday.
Yes.
A very interesting budget, I must say. Quite a lot was said, but I don't know if quite a lot of work was done in preparing the budget and so forth. Your take on it, you took it in first hand.
Yes, and as you indicated, Marlon, this budget was widely anticipated. The public waited with bated breath, to hear when the date will be announced. You heard members of the public calling, when is the budget? When will the budget be read? And as you said, we saw something announced. So a date was announced and then it wasn't announced. Yeah. And then less than 24 hours, we saw a publication. And I want persons to recognize the initial publication came on a yellow background, not on official pages, but on political pages.
Correct.
And then that also, spurred on some conversations. And well, then we saw it on the official pages of the Ministry of Finance and, well, the Minister of Finance. So budget was on Monday. And yes, the minority leader and I was present to, witness this maiden budget presentation from Minister Tanku. And it was quite a lot to take in. Initially, what we recognize is that, and just bringing some highlights from the budget presentation. So the total revenues are estimated at $55.367 billion, while the total expenditure is $59.232, and a fiscal deficit of $3.865 billion. So in terms of the revenue, we are seeing that the revenue will be predicated on an oil price of $73.25 per barrel.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of conversation surrounding the reality of the revenue streams coming into this budget, whether or not, it is realistic, because currently, based on the information before us, oil prices averaging $52, $53 a barrel. And even while last year's budget was predicated on an oil price of $77, we recognize that at that time oil prices were slightly higher, and even at that time the budgeted revenue was not realized, because again, based on information, I think there was a shortfall in what we would have budgeted to receive in revenue versus what was actually received. So again, based on the prevailing circumstances in terms of oil and gas prices, and even in relation to the current production, there is discussion in the public domain whether or not the revenues are based on realistic prices. Yes, we also saw some highlights. And for us in Tobago, we saw the Tobago allocation being increased, and we welcome that, $2.9 billion. So we see an additional increase in the allocation to Tobago year on year, and we have been seeing that from 2022, 2023, consistent increases. So we welcome the increase. What we saw different this year is that there was no disaggregation in the allocation to Tobago, and we will go through that later on in the program. So normally when the budget is ready, the Minister of Finance will indicate, the overall allocation, then he will disaggregate it into recurrent, what is the estimated recurrent, what is the estimated development program, the estimates for CPEP and URP, as well as government spending in Tobago. So we saw the overall allocation of $2.9 billion for Tobago, a 5% of the overall budget estimates. And we saw a projected expenditure in relation to central government spending in Tobago of over $700 million. But what we did not see is the related disaggregation. I want us to come to disaggregation later on.
Later on in the program. So I want us to back up a bit, because there's an old saying, much ado about nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that what we've seen transpiring thus far since yesterday in the public domain, especially right here in Tobago, is a number of individuals claiming that Tobago has now gotten 6.3% a budgetary allocation. Now, I want us to take a little time to break that down, because it's important that all of us understand what was represented in the budget, and what was why it is that some persons are trying to make it seem inflated beyond what it really should be, or create a narrative, as it were. Tobago was given 5%.
Yes.
In the budgetary allocation.
Yes. So the budgetary allocation to Tobago That is what they will receive for recurrent and development program is 2.9%. Right, so that amounts to about approximately 5% of the national budget. We also saw
2.9 billion.
2.9 billion,
Correct.
sorry. Yes, 2.9 billion, and an average of 5% of the national budget. As is customary, government will spend in Tobago because there are government services that are offered in Tobago on behalf of, that is not a part, necessarily a part of the fifth schedule of the Tobago House of Assembly. So in terms of utilities, we have spending for public utilities, we have spending for WASA, we have spending for tea and tech, we have a spending in terms of housing in Tobago, and that is customary. So from year on year, you would see government expenditure 700 million, sorry, 600 plus million, and you will find that customary in the national budget. This year, it is, I think, $7 million in government expenditure in Tobago. So what was done to come up with this 6.3% is to add the allocation of 2.9 plus government spending in Tobago of the over $700 million. So that is what sums it up to the 6.9 and 6.3, sorry. And if you go back to the other years of government spending in Tobago,
that's what I want us
you
to do.
will also see it. So if you do, and I just want to go back to, so last year, government spending in Tobago was 678, I think it was, million. Let me get the correct figures.
While we're at it, I'd like the director to pull up that flyer that I've been asking so that it can be on screen as well.
The total allocation last year was 2.599 billion, and the additional spend of central government was $6.785 million, which gives, and if you want to do the cumulative overall, that would have been 5.49%. And again, I saw something yesterday which indicated that the increase in the allocation from 2025 to 2026 was some average between 43%.
Yeah.
But you have to compare apples and apples. So if you add the allocation to the THA plus government spending, you will come to the 6.3%. Similarly, if you add the 2.59 plus the 6.78, you will get 5.7%, I think it is. No, 5.49%. So if you do the difference, it's an average of about 12% difference in terms of the increase if you do the aggregate together. So again, comparing like with like. Similarly, government spending in 2024 was 6.78. In 2023, it was 7.315. In 2022, it was 7.88. In 2021, it was $7.545 million. So as I indicated, government spending in Tobago has been between $7 million to $6 million. And I am looking because in COVID, remember in COVID, that was in 2020, the government would have had additional spending in Tobago, and in that particular year, it was $987.1 billion. Million dollars in additional expenditure by the central government in Tobago.
So just to get it clear, and this is what we want persons to understand, the last fiscal allocation to Tobago prior to this one, we received 4.3% of the national budget. This year we received 5% of the national budget, a difference of 0.7% of the national budget. And every year our allocation, there is, in addition to the allocation, the government's spend that is allocated to various ministries that fall under the 6th schedule.
Yes.
So that is not clumped, and I am going through this because we saw a similar situation occur in the mid-year review.
It is not clumped because the different ministries will have their expenditure. So as I explained before, the Ministry of Public Utilities will have their spend on the public utilities. The Ministry of National Security, well, it's not now National Security, but the Minister of Homeland Security will have its expenditure. The Ministry of Housing will also have its expenditure. So every ministry that is doing work in Tobago will have its expenditure allocated to Tobago.
Question, is it that these allocations through by way of the ministries, is it mandatory that they spend that money, or is it based on the need?
No, it's not mandatory. Well,
so it's not actually promised.
It is promised, but we wait for the materializing. So under the People's National Movement, central government, we actually saw physical infrastructure spend
materialize coming out of that.
We saw the expansion of the terminal, the new terminal of the A&R Robinson International Airport. We saw the desilting of the Hillsborough Dam. We saw the construction of police stations, fire stations, hospitals, buildings. So we saw that happening. Additionally, let's look at the Ministry of National Security. You also have persons who reside in Tobago that provide service in Tobago in national security. But national security is a 6th schedule item that does not fall under the remit of the THA. So you'll have to pay the wages, you'll have to do those things for those personnel in Tobago. So I guess in some instances it's mandatory, while for others in terms of developmental is what the central government sees as priority in Tobago. And we could see under the PNM, based on its track record, that the PNM central government saw development in Tobago as priority based on its spend.
Okay. So I felt that it was important for us to clear that up because a number of persons are confused. And you're seeing some headlines going around, non-official, because you would have heard the Chief Secretary himself when he conducted their briefing after the budget. He took the time when in his explanation to say that Tobago has received 5% of the budget. Even when the Minister of Finance spoke to it in the House, he spoke to 5%, and then he went on to identify what the ministries would have gotten. So I felt that it was important for us in Tobago for persons to understand that, that our allocation is ideally 5%.
And what I want the members of the public to do as well is to pay attention to the details, because even as we look at government spend, if you look at, so these are the estimates, but if you look at the actual expenditure, which is included in the estimates book, you will see the actual expenditure. So I know sometime in the past, members of this executive council would have berated government's expenditure, asking how could that be tracked, and you know, the government is just saying that they will spend this money, but they may not actually spend the money. If you look at there are line items under the particular ministries that are relevant to Tobago. So under the then Ministry of Public Utilities, there was a line item for desilting of the Hillsborough Dam. So you could go there, see what the allocation was, and see what the expenditure is for the previous year. So those line items, and again, in the past, the minister made it his duty, and even the different ministries made it their duty to indicate to the people what the actual expenditure was. So they spoke to the A&R Robinson Airport expansion and what the allocation was, or the proposed allocation for the various years. Again, you could go to the estimates, look at the line item, and see what the estimates and what the actual expenditure. So those major big ticket items that had line items, they paid particular attention to those, disaggregating it from the overall expenditure in Tobago.
Now, you mentioned something, and before we move forward, I just want to go back and touch on it, because you spoke to the expansion and the A&R Robinson Airport. Now, earlier this year, I think we would have heard an announcement of the airport being operationalized in July, thereabout. I think, to my disappointment, coming out of the budget, we're now hearing second quarter 2026.
Yes.
I don't know how Tobago views that, because we know the relevance of that airport's operations to even boosting our tourism product, arrivals and so forth. But how do you view that? How did you feel hearing that now, yet again, the Chief Secretary said something that did not materialize, and now we're hearing literally almost another year to wait?
Well, it is disappointing. I am not sure what has accounted for the increased delay, but we hope that whatever is causing the delay will be a thing of the past, because as the minority leader continues to say, what oil and gas is to Trinidad, tourism should be in Tobago, and that opening of the expansion of the A&R Robinson Airport will be a game changer for us in Tobago. I am not sure how many persons were able to, view pictures of the inside of that airport, but it is something that will add value to our product in terms of our tourism product in Tobago. But I also just want to share some additional highlights in terms of the budget. One of the things that, of course, gained a lot of attention with the budget presentation yesterday was the announcement of the reduction of $1 for the fuel prices. And again, whatever is good, we welcome. And that will bring some relief to our motoring.
Some
Motoring public, because it was on super.
Yes.
So yes, we welcome that. We also saw where there will be some increase in taxes and surcharges. So we saw surcharges on rental properties. And we could see that in the past, the UNC would have criticized the property tax, but this appears to be another incarnation of property tax. I think that was 2.5% on the rental income of properties. We also saw where there would be a proposed surcharge in electricity for industrial and commercial companies. We saw an increase in NIS payments of 3% come January, and a further 3% in 2027.
Yes.
And we also saw where the incremental increase in terms of retirement. So no longer, and that was proposed as a phased approach. So no longer retirement will be at 60, but over time, it will increase to 65. And if you want to retire at the age of 60, in the transition period, your retirement benefits will be not the full retirement. You will not have access to the full retirement benefits. And again, I am seeing some level of double speaking.
Yes.
Because while the UNC was in opposition, they would have made some comments in terms of some of the policy measures that were being attempted by the former PNM administration. And I remember in particular, as it relates to the increase in the pension age, because this is something that the former government was speaking to the trade unions about. And even the UNC at the time was saying that the Prime Minister herself indicated that you had to have widespread consultations to increase the wage and to increase the age, the pension age. And we also saw where the unions were not, in favor of increasing the pension age. Now you see, without any consultation, a statement that the pension age will increase, as well as the NIS payments. We also saw surcharges in customs and excise. So increase in the rates for alcohol and cigarettes to 50 and 100% in some instances.
In some instances.
So if you're paying for a beer now $10, you may have to pay $20 for a beer, and every surcharge or every tax adds up. And although there was a concerted effort to indicate to the people that these are, even with the bank's taxes on the assets, of those institutions. And those taxes and surcharges are going to add up. Because although, as I was saying, although the stress is that it is not on the individual, but are on companies, the companies will transfer those increase to the consumer. So over time, we will see an increase in the standard of living and an increase in the cost of goods and services to the general public. Because if I am having an increase in rent, if I am having an increase in electricity, if I am having an increase in or reduction in the subsidy for LPG gas for over £100 tanks, who would normally have a £100 tank? Either a restaurant, a small shop, somebody selling food. So it means that the cost of a Boxer meal, if it was $45 or $60, that will increase because the cost to produce the item will therefore increase. So we are seeing where there's you give on one hand and you take on the next.
They give one figure, but they're taking back much more. And this is the reality when this whole thing is unfolding. Because yes, and there's persons who are keeping a watch party over the $1. I can say categorically that $1 decrease will not impact many of us because most, if not all, of the more up-to-date vehicles use premium gas. So there's an entire segment of the population who will not benefit from that $1. However, everything else is a hit. The NIS increase. Now, persons, I've already heard conversations from workplace staff, employees that, listen, I pay $3 something now, it's going to go up to 500 and something.
And it will increase. And the burden will be both on the employee and the employer. Because NIS is such where it is shared. So the employer pays 2/3 while the employee pay 1/3. So if it increases,
everybody,
the burden will be felt on both sides. And again, this is a burden on the employer. So if he is providing a good or a service, it's an additional cost to him, and it will be impacted on us as the normal consumer of goods and services.
Yes. That is the harsh reality.
And that is the reality. And I think that is the part that the general public, I want to open the eyes of the general public to see that although it is said that these are surcharges and taxes on companies, on banking institutions, on industrial agencies, it is going to be transferred to the consumer because it means that the production of whatever good or service, that production cost would have increased. And businesses are engaged to make a profit.
That is the underlying factor.
You are in business to make a profit.
Correct. Correct. Not to,
So you are going to
take care of your
transfer the
community.
increase in cost to the consumer.
Even in that minority council, we've already seen the gas station owners association speaking
Yes,
out,
I saw that in an
where
article today.
I'll ask the director to pull up that particular article as well. We saw gas station owners indicating that they're already going to be facing losses between 20 to 30,000 having this announcement
Yes.
made. So what are people celebrating about? And that is my question. Persons have not sat to really dissect and understand what this budget means. Now, even beyond that, minority councillor, you spoke to a situation earlier that I think many persons as well would be interested in understanding. You said that the budget was pegged on a $73 price for oil per barrel, when in reality it's about $52, and I think 52, 53, and it's expected to go to the highest about 58. There's a deficit in that.
Yes.
Where are we going to now find the money? Is it that we are now, and I heard this along the way, our borrowing capacity has now increased. So is it that we are going to be heading towards more borrowing to be able to meet the needs of this budget?
Well, I am unable to say what is the government's intention. There's a school of thought, and yes, if the revenues are not where it is projected, it means that the deficit will be greater. So we are budgeted for a deficit of $3 billion. If the revenues come down, then it means that the deficit will be greater. Some persons are saying that deficit could be up to $9 or even $10 billion. Yes, based on what oil prices may be and based on what our production is as well. There's also a school of thought that this is a precursor to going into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, because if what is budgeted falls short of what the actual revenues are, I think the government can go into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund of up to, I think it's 60% of the shortfall. So some persons are saying that this may be a precursor to the government going into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. It is left to see how the government will manage what is before us. And it is good to be responsible in government as well as in opposition, because some of the measures that were being proposed in the past, they were basically shut down by the UNC government. And now that they're in government, similar measures are being proposed but called a different name. We spoke to the property tax versus the rental surcharge. There's another aspect of revenue that is being proposed in this budget, being the NIF fund.
Yes, I actually have that
Again, I recall vividly where the Prime Minister was indicating, and I think this NIF was either between $3 or $4 billion that the government was trying to raise. And the Prime Minister, opposition leader back then, was saying that it was a Ponzi scheme. And the government is trying to take money from the taxpayer. But yet still we see in this budget.
Here we have it.
A proposed NIF.
And I want the director to cue that clip.
Years or a year or so, or whenever it was that the government was offering, you said it was a Ponzi scheme. A few years later, the government is proposing in its budget to have a said NIF as a revenue earning mechanism.
I want the director to
So
cue
is
that
it
clip
no
so we
longer a
can hear.
Ponzi scheme?
Let the public participate in this. Could we have that particular clip run as well with the news headline?
That's what the bonds are. When a government issues bonds, they are to raise money. The government wants to get $4 billion more from you on assets that you already owned, because the taxpayers already own these companies, TGU, the CL, all the CL companies, Republic Bank and so on. So that's why I'm telling you, it's like a Ponzi scheme.
Right. So we heard it from the horse's mouth. Yet still we're seeing now in this year's budget presentation the exact Ponzi scheme this government is now using
To raise revenue.
to raise revenue.
And again, I have to stress the point. We have to be responsible in opposition as
Yes.
well as in government. Because if it is bad, and if it was not good for the country and it was not good for citizens,
All right.
why are you now having it as a proposal of one of the fiscal measures in your presentation?
Wow.
But
Now, I want us to move into another part of the discussion, and we're coming back to Tobago. Before we do that, I want us to take a very short break. We're going to pay some bills, and when we come back, we shift our conversation back to Tobago. Let's discuss, as they say, let's mind our business now, and we're going to get into some serious pulling apart of what we can expect. So we'll be right back, folks. Stay locked on.
Are you in a dispute with a registered investment service provider of the TTSEC? Or maybe you're the victim of an investment scam? You can lodge a complaint or submit an anonymous tip to the Trinidad and Tobago Securities and Exchange Commission. Download our Investor Protection app or go to ttsec.org.tt to access our complaint form or submit an anonymous tip. Write a clear summary of your complaint. Submit copies of supporting documents along with the originals for verification. Provide a copy of the feedback received from the entity regarding your complaint. All investor complaints or scam reports submitted by the public are acknowledged and reviewed by the TTSEC. Investigations are pursued based on the outcome of the review. Trinidad and Tobago Securities and Exchange Commission, protecting the interests.
Out of studio, I was about to say in studio. We're back out of studio, yet still in studio. And we continue our conversations this evening about the budget and its impact, current and in the future. Joining me this evening is the Minority Councillor. Minority Councillor, I want us to go right into this aspect of it. We're hearing less funding for development for Tobago. previously allocated spending out from 2024, we received 205 million. Yet in this particular budget, we're seeing 201.5 million. So we're even seeing reductions from previous budgets. How does that affect us, and why? Why are we seeing that?
Okay, so as we were saying before, that what we saw is a lump sum of the allocation to Tobago. And in the past, the Minister of Finance will indicate the lump sum, however, he will also disaggregate the allocation.
Yeah.
So the allocation will be disaggregated into recurrent expenditure, and the minister will announce how much will be the recurrent expenditure. He will also announce what is the DP expenditure. He would, the proposed allocation for DP, what is the allocation for CPEP, what is the allocation for URP. This year, we did not see that disaggregation of the allocation to Tobago. So to break it out, the allocation for recurrent expenditure, and recurrent expenditure will be your personal expenditure, your salaries and wages, your goods and services, all your rental, your contract officers, consumables, things that you do for the day-to-day, minor equipment like your vehicles and any other minor equipment that you may purchase, as well as your current transfers and subsidies. So for recurrent expenditure, the total allocation was $2.742 billion, right? And that was increased from 2.4 billion in the previous year.
Yeah.
We saw this year that the development program allocation was $201 million. So $201.5 million. And that was a decrease from
last year.
205 million last year. And even as the PNM was saying, and commentators were saying to the public, that year on year we have seen an increase in the allocation. So from 2022, we saw an increase. 2023, we saw an overall increase. 2024, we saw an increase. Similarly, 2025. And what we have been saying is that this Tobago House of Assembly have been receiving an increase in the allocation year on year. But the highlights last year by this administration, this TPP-THA administration, was that although there was an overall increase in the allocation, the development program decreased. And their argument was that development program increased from 260 million in 2024 to 205 million. And they alluded to the fact that the PNM did not like Tobago and the development program allocation is what will drive development in Tobago, and the PNM was wicked and all that sort of stuff. And not seeing the overall increase. Now this time, we fail to hear the administration speaking to a decrease in the development program agenda. And again, it's just being responsible. So there has been a decrease in the DP. However, there has been an increase in the recurrent expenditure. And as we were saying all along, the Tobago House of Assembly has the prerogative to prioritize. So you're cussing the past PNM administration for a decrease in the DP, but you're silent now that there's a decrease in the DP. Be honest. Again, we welcome the increase in the allocation, but the same energy that we have been receiving in terms of the development program is what drives economic activity in Tobago. We're not hearing that same cry. in terms of the reduction of the
Yeah.
DP and the driving force of economic activity in Tobago. What was also visibly absent is that we did not hear what is the allocation for URP and CPEP. And we have seen on the national level where the government has indicated that they are moving in a different direction in relation to URP and the CPEP. So nationally, all the contractors and workers of CPEP were sent home.
Yeah.
We have also seen a similar occurrence with URP where a number of URP workers were sent home.
Yeah.
We have not heard in this budget what is the allocation for URP and CPEP in Tobago. And I saw a publication
Ask the director to
from
pull it up,
Ernest
please.
and Young. And the publication in the executive summary speaks to the elimination of CPEP and
URP.
And I want to go to the caption of this publication. The cover page of this article is Focus on Trinidad and Tobago Budget 2026, and it's a publication from Ernest and Young, Shape the Future with Confidence. And on page 4 of that said article highlights
elimination of CPEP and URP.
And this is the subheading, elimination of CPEP and URP. And it says, despite their original intent to alleviate poverty and stimulate community development, these programs have long been criticized as make-work schemes with limited value-added outcomes and susceptible to misuse. In a bold departure from the status quo, the government has announced its intention to eliminate CPEP and URP, citing their infiltration by criminal elements and inefficiency in delivering meaningful employment. The minister declared the establishment of a 475 million employment fund, supplemented by 310 million from the unemployment fund to support the creation of full-time and better jobs.
Better paid jobs.
So we have seen the dismantling of CPEP and URP at the national level. There are a number of persons employed in CPEP and URP in Tobago. We have not heard, based on the minister's pronouncement in Parliament yesterday, what is the allocation for CPEP and URP. And we are asking the question, in light of what is happening nationally, what will be happening in Tobago, and what is the allocation for CPEP and URP in Tobago? We did not hear. It was visibly absent from there was no disaggregation. So the allocation for CPEP and URP was not mentioned. We would like to know what is the allocation.
This is
in light of the government's new direction.
Wow. So literally what we're seeing is as if the budget has been presented, but more so with respect to Tobago, there's a lot of ambiguity. So it's like a blanket just thrown, and there's no transparency coming now where we have the THA actually coming out an account. We saw the last couple of years where there was supposed to be the reprioritization exercise. That never occurred.
Well, there was a reprioritization debate in the House where, based on the allocation coming up from the budget, they will determine what their new priorities are and come to the House and share their priorities. But generally speaking, the mover of the motion, as well as the other secretaries who come to speak, more often than not, it is void of what the real priorities are. And one of the things that the Chief Secretary promised, even while he was in opposition, that when the reprioritization takes place, there should be a restatement of the THA budget. In the first year, the secretary, when he was Secretary of Finance, the Chief Secretary promised that we will receive that. To this day, we have not received it. It has been
4 years later.
Well, they have had 3 reprioritization. This will be the 4th, and we have not seen a restatement of the Tobago House of Assembly estimates in keeping with what the allocation is to the Tobago House of Assembly. What has also been visibly absent is the reporting by the respective secretaries of finance in terms of how the allocation received was spent.
Correct.
In the past, we were told X amount was spent on recurrent, X amount was spent on DP, X amount was spent on CPEP and URP, supplemented by the contingency fund. What was the expenditure on the contingency fund, and highlights of the major projects that was funded by the contingency. For the past 4 years, in the budget presentation and even in the reprioritization, that has been absent from the statement.
And I asked the director just to pull this back up.
And what I also want to stress is something that the minority has said from the onset. What this administration is facing is not a lack of funding or a lack of resources, because we have seen year on year where this administration has received an increase in allocation. With this year's allocation, it will be $11 billion that they will be receiving. But Marlon, if you cannot manage $1, you will not be able to manage $100.
Correct.
And based on the administrations in the past, this TPP administration has received the most funds coming out of our national budget. Per term.
In one term.
But what have we seen in return in terms of the development of the island?
Correct. And we have to stress that so that persons understand.
So we continue to say it is not a money problem. It is a management problem.
11
and even
billion
as
received.
We are receiving $11 billion, you are hearing the cry from the man on the ground. Our economy is in stagnation. You feel it, you see it, you hear it. This reopening of the school term is the worst I have seen, where persons are in need.
And persons who you don't expect.
And genuine in need.
Correct.
And unable to satisfy basic needs.
Basic needs. The basic needs.
We saw recordings where you see contractors working and few or none laborers are from Tobago. You're seeing contracts, major contracts being issued, but who are the contractors receiving these jobs? They are contractors that are not indigenous Tobago contractors.
Correct.
And the complaint from members of the public is one of sustainable employment. We have seen Tobago contractors having to let go and send home thousands of employees because they are not receiving the jobs that will be able to have them sustain the level of employment or the level of employees that they had in the past. So with the level of funding coming to Tobago, we have not seen the reciprocated development and stimulation of the Tobago economy.
And I want to pause to remind all of Tobago that this chief secretary and his administration took a systematic approach to break down and dismantle
Tobago contract.
All Tobago contract, a way of a publicly announced audit that to date, and I'm looking straight into the camera because I want everybody to understand, to date, that audit has not surfaced. There is absolutely no proof of this audit that the chief secretary said to Tobago he had that was damning.
Yeah.
And he dismantled every homegrown contractor, decimated the industry, brought our economy into stagnation, and the only people who are benefiting to date are those who, according to the Secretary of Works at the time, belong to another economy. They have spirited away $11 billion and built another economy. And I challenge them to prove otherwise.
So, Tobagonians, we have seen what this administration has produced. So $11 billion, and we have Ambulance Gate.
Yes.
How many millions spent in ambulances, and they are unable to satisfy the public? Something as emergency service. Millions of dollars, and we can't have a good working fleet of ambulances. They're breaking down every Monday morning. And we also seen where we still, because the new quote-unquote new ambulances that we have purchased cannot service Tobago, we still continue to rent ambulances.
We have these still on the island.
So we pay over $17 million for ambulances. What do we have to show for that expenditure?
Still leasing.
We have an incinerator that we purchase, millions. We can't install it. CT scan, MRI, not functional.
And we are paying a company still to deal with our waste products. And the incinerator is there. CT scan, $6 million spent, and after 3 months, needs repairs, totally broken down, non-functional. And this is the type of governance
yes, we have service
that
providers.
the citizens of Tobago are receiving from an administration.
Every day we have service providers who singing to receive payments, who months on end, sometimes you hear people complaining several months. They provide a service to the Tobago House of Assembly and they have not received payments. You hear some employees complaining that fortnights pass, they're not able to get their salaries. You hear employees from the divisions speaking to the fact that they can't have basic supplies to ensure that they function properly.
Right
Toilet
at the office
paper,
of the minority
precisely.
leader.
For months we have been waiting.
There was no ink. For a printer.
For a printer. Paper, toilet paper. Those are basic supplies for the running of any organization.
The hospital do have basic drugs. Do have syringes. And we are seeing clearly $11 billion received. And where has that money gone? Who has actually benefited from this $11 billion allocation to date? We've seen over $25 million in travel. We're still seeing traveling taking place actually by a number of because they don't announce anything. You only see something from the outside. And what has our tourism industry benefited from the multiple trips? What has our education system benefited from the multiple trips? Our agricultural sector, we saw these trips. The settlements, our housing sector, what has it benefited from these trips where we saw THA secretaries going on and earning significant per diems, coming back to Tobago, and what? All the what they call them study tours, and came back to Tobago, and we've not seen to date one benefit. I remember in the first budget when you said, you asked the question to the Secretary of Settlements, where are you going to get the money from for this 1,000 houses? Watch me work.
It was an ambitious housing program then that they anticipated will start in the second quarter of that year. They have not, and that was just to do some conceptualization and feasibility. And they wanted to build a housing, 1,000 houses in the first term. And when I pointed out the fact that this seems to be unrealistic based on what you are proposing, the secretary said, watch him work. We are watching. We are watching the Secretary of Settlements, and we have not seen you work.
Failures.
So, again, Tobagonians,
don't be fooled.
We welcome the increase in allocation. However, we continue to say that with the largest allocation, the current TPP Tobago House of Assembly has not stimulated and provided the adequate development to Tobago. We are saying that it is not a money issue, but it's a management issue. And if you are unable to manage $1, it will prove quite difficult to manage $100.
Exactly.
So if you can't manage 2.1, if you can't manage 2.4, 2.3, 2.5, managing 2.9 will also be a nightmare and will not rebound to the benefit of Tobagonians, as we have seen in the past.
Yeah.
So let us continue to hold this administration accountable.
Correct. So folks, we are to the end of our program this evening. I mean, we really want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for allowing us to share the last hour and just a little bit of programming. We want to leave you with a sobering thought of not allowing ourselves to become so caught up that we lose sight of what the reality of our situation is. Yes, as Minority Council indicated, we welcome anything that is better for Tobago, we will welcome. But let us not fall asleep at the wheels. Let us not fall asleep. Let's continue to hold this administration accountable for the promises that they made to us. Promises of accountability, promises of transparency, none of which we have seen materialize in almost 4 years of governance. So this evening, we're going to continue this conversation next Tuesday as we continue to unravel and to unfold a number of other things coming out of this budget presentation yesterday and what it means or continues to mean for Tobago. Stay tuned, stay with us. Invite someone to look at the program next week. And we want to say thank you for supporting. Thank you for being with us. It's been almost 4 years. Yes, almost 4 years of programming. And you've stuck with us. You've continued to lend your support. So I'm Marlon David saying have a good evening. Stay prayed up and God bless.